Hi, I'm Mercedes Rodriguez. I'm a GDE for assistant, and I work as conversational AI specialist at GFT Group. You can see there my Twitter if you want to contact me at any moment. And today I'm going to talk about building conversational agents and what are the main keys to success in that. So the first one for me is natural conversation. What I mean with this is that users must be able to interact with agent in natural language and ask what they want or they need with an open conversation, as if they were talking to a human. Some companies, especially a couple of years ago, they were afraid that if they allow the users to ask what they want, the agent wouldn't answer properly. So they chose some kind of guided conversations with buttons, or in case of voice, like giving several options to the user and ask them to say like, if you want to do this, say or press 1. If you want to do this, say or press 2, or things like that. But that is frustrated for users many times because the user do know what he or she needs, but sometimes what they need is not very clear in the options that the agent gives them. So they just have to be trying with the different options. And if that is by phone, it's worse because usually you just cannot go back in the menus and you just have to end the conversation and just call again. And also, even if it's not the first time that you interact with the agent and you already know which options you have to choose, if you have to pass through many menus in order to get what you actually need, you get tired and frustrated. So the best option is that you can just ask whatever you want, as if you were talking to a human. Fine. The second thing to success is finding a key use case. What I mean with this, it's many companies also at the beginning, they say, okay, we are going to develop a conversational agent. We just want to try if that interests to our users and how they interact with them, if they use it or not, and things like that. And they just choose any use case without thinking on this. And then they see that the users doesn't interact with it. And they think, well, users are not interested in talking to a machine. And sometimes it's true, but most of the times that's not the problem. And the problem is that the conversational agent that they have developed is not really useful or interesting for the users. So finding a key use case is essential. And what are the good use cases? Well, those that solve a problem or add value for the users, for the owner, or for both. For example, one thing that is very frustrating for users is that when they have to call to a customer service and they just have to be waiting in the phone for 5 minutes or 7 minutes or even longer. So being able to talk to a conversational agent and receive an answer in seconds, that's a very good point to use the agent. Also, having 24 hours service every day of the year, that's very important as well, because many companies, especially small ones, just offer service in office hours. So this could be a good point to use the agent as well. Also, if the process that we want to do is faster or convenience, for example, it's faster and more convenient to me if I'm just sitting in the sofa and I can say, okay, Google, please, I want talk to health services to book an appointment for tomorrow for my doctor. That's faster than having to go to the website, or open the website of the health services and just look for the menu to book an appointment and then do all the process. So that could be a very good point also for using the service. The other option is that add some value for the owner. The most commons are cost savings. For example, for big companies that have call centers, if the agent answers most of the repetitive questions, like sometimes they can answer like 70 or 80% of the questions that are usually always the same. So the calls to the call center get reduced, and that traduces in cost savings for the company. And also the other good thing is getting data. If we have a website and the user browses our website looking for something, but that information is not in the website, they just leave the website and we never know what they were looking for. But talking to an agent, we can later review all those conversations and see, oh, there are a lot of users interested in this. So we can just add that service to the agent, or also maybe creating a new project because we see that there are many people interested in that kind of product. So it gives very useful insight most of the times. Fine. Once we start with development, well, first before development, we start designing the agent. It's very important to delimit scope. With that, I mean what exactly is going our agent to be able to answer and what not. And it's very important to delimit this according to development time. If the user interacts with the agent a couple of times and the agent doesn't answer properly, it's the users are going to lose interest, and they're going to say, oh, this is not useful, and they do not come back. So it's very important that we choose a scope, and that the agent is able to answer most of the questions for that scope. So when the user starts to talk to the agent, if the user is aware of what is the scope and they know that our agent can answer to this, and this, and they get an answer for most of the questions they do about that, they will come back. The other thing we have to think is channel integrations, and also the devices where our agent is going to be available. Even if we are not integrating the agent in all those channels or in all those devices right now, it's good to think in mid or long term, because it can determine our development. There are things that we can do now in the development that make our agent more scalable later. So that's good. So the important thing here is delimit the scope for the best quality. So our agent answers most of the questions about that scope, and the user has the feeling that it's useful. The next step is creating a persona. The users are going to interact with the company through the agent, so having a character to interact with, and that they can identify with the company, it's very important. So for this character, we have to design an image. It's going to have an age and a gender, or maybe without gender, like just a robot or whatever. We have to choose if it's going to have a modern look or a more traditional one, or a casual or professional one. Also, if it's going to be a conversational agent by voice, We have to choose the tone and the volume, the intonation, and we have to decide how it's going to be our agent in terms of personality. It can be friendly, or it can be more close to the user or more distant. It can be funny or serious, or it can transmit confidence, or just be very enthusiastic, or maybe even ironic or sarcastic. And the language that it's going to use. It can use a formal language or an informal one, or maybe it can use a general language, or use more specialized language. What's going to determine this is the brand, the users, and the theme of our agent. Now there are a lot of studies that image is very important for the brands, and most of them have developed a brand strategy. They have an image with branding colors, and they also usually have some kind of company values that they want to transmit to their clients. So it's very important that the persona that we create is according to all that. And it must be also according to the users, because it's very important that the character gets close to the users and that they feel comfortable talking to the character. So we shouldn't use the same character if the public are like very young people or students, as if the public are, I don't know, like lawyers or some kind of professional people. And because the language and the way that the agent is going to talk is going to be different. And also the theme or area for our agent is not the same an agent for sales than that one for assistance or even for entertainment. And this is the same as if it was a person. Usually, the people that attend you in a shop, in a clothes shop, or in a bank, or in a student service, they do not dress the same. Usually, they do not talk the same. So for our agent is it's the same. They have to adapt to the situation, to the image of the company, to the users, and to the topic. Wow. Then, once that we have the character and we have decided the use case that we want to develop, we have to design the dialogues. In this step, for success, a very important point is handling user expectations. What I mean with this is that we have to make clear to users what exactly the agent is able to answer and what not, and from the very beginning. Since we are offering open conversation and the users can ask whatever they want, it's very important that they know what they can ask or what our agent is prepared to answer. So if they ask for another thing different from that and they do not get an answer, they do not get frustrated. We can see here in the right an example. This is Lola, and when she welcomes the user, she just say, "Hi, I'm Lola, the astrologer. I can tell you your monthly or daily horoscope, as well as your fortune in love, work, or health. What would you like to listen?" So she says hello, she introduces herself, but then she makes clear what she can answer. If you just say, "Hi, I'm Lola, the astrologer, how can I help you?" the user could ask whatever they want, and maybe I don't have an answer for that. But if I already tell you, okay, I can answer this, this, and this, so you must choose something of this. And if you choose another thing, okay, that's your problem. I'm going to handle this in conversation as well. But I already told you before that I'm not prepared for that. Well, the next thing important is contemplate all possible paths for conversation. There is always an ideal path. This could be the ideal path. when she asks, "What would you like to listen?" and the user says, "Okay, tell me how it's going to be my day." Uh, then Lola asks for the zodiac sign, and in the ideal path, the most common is that the user says, "Of course, I'm Marius or I'm Leo," and Lola gives a prediction. But it can happen that the user reacts in a different way. So the users could just keep quiet and not say anything. Or maybe they can say, "Oh, I don't know my sign." So in that case, we would have to ask for their birth date. Or maybe when we ask for the zodiac sign, they say, uh, "I don't want to tell you," and we have to handle this in conversation. Or he just make another question and change topic and say, "Oh no, better I prefer to hear about love." So uh, our agent has to be prepared for all the possibilities related to the scope that we have delimited. Also, it's very important to have into account the difference between text and voice. We do not talk the same as we write. So having these differences into account is essential in order for the agent to understand the user and answer properly. For example, many companies develop text chatbots at the beginning, and then they decided to adapt that to voice, and they just use the same agent and integrate it in different platforms, and they then realized that it wasn't working. And most of the time, the problem is that if the user is trained with just short phrases, when it comes to voice, when we talk, we form complete sentences and longer sentences. So that can be a problem if the agent is not trained properly for that. And finally, uh, we must have always a plan B in case that we do not have an answer for that. It can happen that even if we are inside the scope of our agent, there can be some question that we missed, or maybe the user is just saying it with another words that the agent hasn't been trained for that, and do not find an answer for what the user is asking. So we have to decide what we are going to do in those cases and prepare our agent for that. For example, we could say like, "I'm sorry, but I'm just prepared for. I'm not prepared for what you, for that. I just can give you information about this, and this. What would you like to listen?" The other option, and one of the best for professional environments and customer service, is just taking the user to a human agent. So if our conversational agent has the answer, gives the answer, and if hasn't got an answer, he can say, "Oh, I'm sorry, but I'm not prepared to answer that, but I'm taking you to a human agent." This could be done in real time, or also we could just register the question and say, "Well, I'm not prepared for this, but if you give me your phone or your email address, an expert will call you as soon as possible and answer the question for you." So in this case, it's like we are not giving an immediate answer, but we are giving a solution to the user, and the user knows that he's going to receive an answer or having the problem solved as soon as possible. There are other best practices and things to take into account for multimodal or maybe accessibility, but we are not entering today in this. But they are also very important. We have also to choose the appropriate technology for dialogues and backend, and also take into account if we are going to use other advanced elements like sentiment analysis or deep learning for Q&A or things like that. In relation with the dialogues, for example, um, sometimes if we know that we are going to develop for different platforms, for example, if we are going to develop an action for Google Assistant, we could use Dialogflow CX, or Actions Builder. Those are the proprietary tools of Google. Um, and if we want to develop a skill for Alexa, we can use the Amazon's tools. But if we want to develop an action for both platforms, instead of developing two different agents with the proprietary tools, we could choose, for example, Jobo, that allows us to develop just one agent and then publish it in both platforms. And and then we would have to maintain just one agent as well. So that could be the best option. This is the reason also for what we should think in what channels we are going to integrate our agent, even if we are not doing it right now. Because if we are starting for an action for Google Assistant, but we know that maybe next year or in some months we are going to develop the same skill for Alexa, we could start with Jobo from the beginning. Okay, once we start with implementation, one important point is the intents and entities structure. This is very, very important. It's essential for quality, but also for scalability. Many people doesn't give a lot of importance to this. They just start to create intents and entities, and choosing the adequate structure is really, really important. So we have to design it fine from the beginning. Also, for quality, it's important to train our agent in many synonyms and with a lot of training phrases, so it can understand the user independently of how they pronounce the question. And for this, it's very important having real examples. For example, if it's a big company that has call center, having previous conversations of the call center would be really useful in order to identify what are the most frequent questions, and also how the users do those questions. And if we cannot have that, a list of frequent questions prepared for the people that usually are attending the public and the clients, that could be great. And it's very important having a list of all the elements that are going to take part in conversation. What I mean with this is, for example, if we are developing an agent to register defects in cars for an automotive company, it should be very important to have a list of all the parts of the cars, a list of all the defects, and any other element that can take part in conversation. And finally, and one of the most important things in this is keeping context. We have to keep context during the conversation. There are many agents published that you can try them, and if you ask, for example, where is the closest bank office near me, and they give you an answer, and then you say, at what time opens the closest office near me, the agent gives an answer as well. But if you ask to the agent, where is the closest bank office, and then you answer, when does it open, they lose context, and they don't know what are you talking about, and so they cannot give you an answer. So keeping context all the time, it's essential for quality and for success. Then there are other details that do not seem so important, but are like details for excellence, and so improve quality, final quality of your agent. In case of voice, for example, there are some elements that we have to pronounce differently depending on the situation. For example, numbers, depending if it's an ordinal or cardinal number, sometimes we have to say one and sometimes we have to say first. Or maybe acronyms. Sometimes we just pronounce the characters and sometimes we pronounce it as a word. Also, we can decide when to make a break in conversation for maybe some milliseconds or something like that, but it's doing that pause is important for understanding and for the user to feel it as a natural conversation. And well, we can manage all that with SSML. It's a markup language, and allows us to adapt all those things. So when our agent speaks, it do it properly. Then once it's prepared, we have to do training before production. Even if we train it ourselves, it's very important to get the agent trained with a group of users that know the theme and that are from the same language variant of the public or the clients that are going to use it. It's very important that they know the theme. For example, if it's for customer assistance, having people from the customer service to try it, that could be great because they know what are the frequent questions and how the users do them, so they can try to catch the agent and challenge it to identify possible defects in the design and also possible training needs. So we can correct all this and improve it before launching the agent to production. And finally, we have to keep training after production. Even if we have already trained our agent a lot, when we put it in production and it interacts with real users, there are going to be maybe they say the things in another way, or maybe there are some questions that we didn't contemplate before. So we should keep training with real users and implementing all the necessary adjustments in order to improve the quality. So this usually can be like 1 month or two, or that depends. If it's an agent that we are scaling all the time, we need continuous training. But if just something that you put for the scope and it's going just to answer that, maybe 1 or 2 months of training with real users, that's enough. And you can with that you can get very good levels of quality. So this could be the summary of what we have talked about: natural conversation, finding key use cases, delimit scope, creating a persona according to brand, users, and theme, handle user expectations, follow conversational best practices like the ideal and alternate paths and the plan B and all that we said about that. Be careful with intent and entity structure, keep context, take into account other excellent details like pronunciation with SSML, and training our agent before and after production. And that's all. Thank you very much for listening to me and hope that you find it interesting.